In a world overrun with the fake, delusional, and disingenuous, he stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
Welcome to the Abuki Cabal Show.
What's going on, everybody? Excuse me. Today I want to talk about the situation with Chris Noth. He famously played the part of Big in Sex and the City. Wasn't really a bad male role model in the series. I actually think he did a pretty good job. He was also on a few other shows. He's on the Equalizer now. Well, he was until he was removed from the program, as well as Sex and the City, the Sex and the City reboot. He was removed from that as well. And I think what's unique about this situation is the days and times that we live in, where a person is guilty based on the court of public opinion. They know that they wouldn't stand a chance in court of convicting a man on the stories that these women keep bringing up. Excuse me. But I'm also gonna scratch over or try to cover something that I've been thinking about during this whole Me Too situation ever since it's come up. One, it's the presumption of innocence, and two, the effects of copycat phenomenon with regard to these stories. Unlike other crimes, in the past, basically, the police would not give details on the crimes so that, people, they know that there's a phenomenon called copycat phenomenon, where people will come out as usually talked about with regard to murders and serial killers, but it happens in other forms of crime as well. And I think it has some, origins in psychology, just the psychology of humans, period, where some people just go out and have a propensity to go out and say that the same thing happened to them. We see it. We've seen it in other stories where people will fake their own kidnappings and all kinds of things in order to get publicity and notoriety and, just the attention, excuse me, the overwhelming attention that you get from a high profile type scenario where you are the victim is I think significant. So we're gonna look into this a little bit. First, I want to thank everybody, all my subscribers, and thank you guys for bumping my numbers up and helping me to be seen on this algorithm that we are having to appease. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. I'm going to try to bounce around a little bit and do a little bit of some of the other things that I find interesting, as well as some of the science topics. But I will still continue to cover some of the science topics because I feel like they're relevant, especially in this day and age. It seems like a lot of things we're going backwards on. We're going backwards on justice. We're going backwards on voting rights. We're going backwards on, men's rights in this nation that we live in now. So I think if we don't do something, if we don't say something, that we deserve the world that we will end up living in, because we didn't choose to fight hard enough to preserve that which is good in our system, and continue to try to change the things that are bad. But let's move on. Let's take a look at these stories. Excuse me. All right, here we go. Here's Chris. Chris Noth was fired from the Equalizer after sexual assault allegations. The actor was also dropped from his talent agency, A3 Artist, on Friday. Excuse me. Gosh, sorry, y'all. This should be this should give a lot of us pause, because never should there be a situation where just on the weight of someone saying that you did something, should a man lose his ability to work, his freedom, any of that. And as you'll see, people pretty much, once these allegations come out, and I'm sure there are other guys out here who have experienced this on a smaller scale. Just working, all it takes is for the allegation to be made, that you looked at somebody kind of strangely, or whatever the case may be, and you can be terminated. Because they're going to cut their losses. They're going to take the easiest route to rectify the situation without them having to pay any money for it, which is to basically get rid of you. And a lot of times it's us, I tell you a little story here. I was working in one place, and one nurse wanted another nurse's shift. He was a man. She was a woman. She wanted a shift. So she basically came on to him, made him feel comfortable, basically saying certain things in public to her and being affectionate to her in public. And she made allegations against him. So then the police were involved. This was, about 3, maybe 4 years ago. And basically the police were going to get involved. They were going to basically take this man to jail, until she finally came out and said that she actually pushed the whole thing so that she could basically get his shift, and she said she didn't want him to get in trouble, and, basically wanted to drop the whole thing. So guess what happened? They fired him anyway. And then they fired her too. Okay. So there you go. So it can happen. It can happen on a smaller scale. It can happen to anybody. And I think we're going to have to just basically start speaking up about some of these things that are going on. This is not the way our legal system is supposed to work. This is not the way our society is supposed to work. And all of this came about from some allegations from, a few ladies who said that they had, relationships with him in one way or another. But let's go on and read what they have here. Okay. So this was in December of last year that it first broke out. But I mean, this man is he's at home now, So Chris Noth has been fired from a CBS show, The Equalizer, following recent sexual assault allegations. Chris Noth will no longer film additional episodes of The Equalizer effective immediately. Universal Television and CBS confirmed in a joint statement sent today. The next episode, which has already been filmed, will be his last, according to CBS. The network said Noth will also appear in any okay, well, gosh, we're starting to see this a lot. People aren't, I guess aren't proofing their stories, but I guess what they're trying to say is that he will not appear in any future repeat episodes that are to air. Okay, The Equalizer is currently airing its second season in it. Noth portrayed a fictional ex-CIA director, William Bishop. Noth's removal from the show follows an article published in The Hollywood Reporter last Thursday that details 2 women's sexual assault allegations against Noth. So it says THR used the pseudonyms of Zoe, 40, and Lily, 31, to protect their identities. Okay, so you protect the identities of the accusers and not the accused, which I think they probably need to start doing now, because, what protection does this man have? If he's innocent until proven guilty, then we need to keep the public at large out of this, because what's going on with these allegations by these feminists and these women's organization now is to basically make the allegation, convict him in the court of public opinion instantly. He loses his job, he loses his money, and we get a little bit of airtime, a little bit of press time, and this guy is damaged. So it's almost like a revenge thing, and that's not what the law is supposed to be about, And then how can we even get to the bottom of any of this stuff if there's no evidence that any of this ever occurred? We have no physical evidence. All we have is anecdotal evidence about, something that supposedly happened between 2 people that wasn't witnessed. And, a man he loses. This is wrong, I can't help but feel like this is jacked up. And the same thing, I just did that story on Snoop Dogg. The same exact thing is happening with Snoop. The same exact thing is happening to all these guys who are in these situations where they see that these guys have money or something to lose, and these women do it. There has to be some type of pushback on this in order for us to actually find out what's happening in these stories before we mete out any kind of punishment. But let's move on. Okay, so their identities are protected. Okay. So the women contacted THR separately months apart. Okay, so why are they contacting the Hollywood Reporter instead of going to the authorities? Another situation that a problem that I have with this whole deal. Okay. To describe the allegations, the alleged incident that occurred in Los Angeles in 2004 and 2015, respectively. Okay. I sat down with a couple of different women, and I asked them about, okay, does a woman have some responsibility to go to the police if something like this has happened, in order for fact finding to be initiated and the gathering of any forensic evidence that can be obtained within the closest and shortest period of time possible in order to get to the truth? Okay. One woman said absolutely, and she acknowledged, that this is a mindset in some women that this is a thing that happens. False allegations happen. Okay. The other lady that I asked, happened to be my wife, and she's like, well, there are going to be, incidents where women are just not going to report, these crimes. I said, so then should they be able to come back 10, 20, 15 years down the road and then say, now I want the guy punished, when there's no way for us to find out whether what they're saying is true or not? So, she had no problem with that, and, we kind of went round and round about that, and she just couldn't see my side, and I definitely can't see her side. So I'm going to keep working on her on that so that she can, start looking at things in a little bit more objective fashion. But that's where we are. We have two sides of the female perspective on this, where some see that, yeah, this is getting to be a bit much. What if this was your father or your brother or your uncle or your cousin or your son? I think you feel a little bit differently about it. So let's move on. In a statement sent to NBC News last week, Noth denied the allegations and said the accusations against me made by individuals I met years, even decades ago, are categorically false. These stories could have been from 30 years ago or 30 days ago. No always means no. That is a line I did not cross. Okay, and this reminds me of, this new Cosby deal where, they're talking about, well, he crossed the line where, she didn't say no. So he and he proceeded, and, this guy acted like he does not, he doesn't know what that means. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a guy in the real world, and I know that, in my life, and talking to numerous people, being in situations myself, there are times and there are situations where, and women have said this, women have said this on Facebook, where they say they want men to act aggressively and to essentially press them, but then you have the others out here, that if you do this, you'll catch a charge. So obviously there is a gray area in this where men are going to be destroyed by this, and I've always kind of had an issue with this no means no thing. I mean, no is not said sometimes, so how are you? I mean, and this is another part of women not having agency, not taking agency with the decisions that they make, we had a situation where the individual who used to do The Talking Dead, where his girlfriend came back and said that he had done all kinds of stuff to her. Then they took him off, and then they come to find out she was lying. So we've had numerous situations where we find that these things didn't take place. There was another Indian actor who had sex with a lady. She put him out, and because the sex wasn't good, she later accused him of sexual assault in a situation where she consented to sex. And it came out. It came out in the investigation that she consented to the sex, but she was disgusted that the sex wasn't good, and then she put the guy out. What if men start doing that? I wonder how women would feel about that, if they were, on the other end of this buffoonery, I know I'm kind of, maybe, treading in some pretty, tumultuous waters here, but I mean, these are conversations that we're going to have. We're going to have them publicly as well, and what you're going to get. You're going to get the feminist, lines about, well, no means no, and a man forcing himself and all that type of junk, and as if, this is happening, in large numbers out here. And, this is something that just, happens to almost every woman, I mean, the numbers aren't there to support what they're saying, but they'll act like they are anyway. But this needs to be addressed, some of the same things, look, the courting rituals that our great grandfathers and grandfathers and grandmothers went through back in the day. A man just leaning in when he gets the indication that she wants him to kiss her, or, that she's open to him making the advance to kiss her, that would be, an assault situation nowadays. I mean, but nobody thinks about that. You wouldn't be here because, your grandfather didn't initiate because he was, scared to death that she was going to, send him to jail because, he leaned in. And then you got the other aspect of it where, the woman says, well, he didn't initiate. So, it just didn't go anywhere. I mean, I know you guys have heard these conversations. So, I know I'm not on some alien planet. I mean, these are things that we hear all the time, on various different shows where these women say they want a man to be aggressive, but it's the right man to be aggressive, and we're starting to see these same age groups, when they're young, it's okay. When they're young and wild, it's okay. But when they hit their 40s and they start getting in those 30s, then all of a sudden you're not getting the attention you used to get. Maybe you're feeling a little bad, self-esteem wise, and you're rethinking some things that you've done in the past. And just like I said in the last one, a lot of women use that whole card and then they want to pull it back, but let's move on in the story. I know this is going to piss some people off, but hey, it is what it is. If you can't have the conversation, what are you afraid of? You're afraid that my words are going to set you on fire. It's not going to happen. Okay. In a statement sent to NBC. Okay. Well, there it is. It's 30 days or 30 years and 30 days. Okay. The encounters were consensual, he says. It's difficult not to question the timing of these stories coming out. I don't know for certain why they are surfacing now, but I do know this. I did not assault these women. On December 17th, a third accuser said in the Daily Beast report that she was assaulted in 2010 when she was 18. It's always, you see how they keep trying to bring this 17 and 18 and all these young, people. I was listening today on ABC News where they were talking about the incident with these young ladies. Sorry about that. With these ladies talking about the Epstein situation. They were talking to the prince and how this girl was supposedly 17 and, she didn't know, that she was basically being, sold, to these high level men, but these women were supposedly there to make money, extra money by babysitting and doing little things for these rich people, and then that ended up in, multiple encounters with these, these rich men. I mean, we've seen, videos of even, ex-President Trump, dancing with an underage girl and, forcibly moving her around, standing right there next to Epstein, who had another girl dancing in front of him. So now all of this stuff has come out, but none of these men are being scrutinized like these lower level gentlemen, And I'm sorry, at 17 years old, you're not dumb, and, it doesn't take you a decade for you to go and tell somebody that something happened to you, or 18 years old. It doesn't take that long, and if you're 18 and Chris Noth was 55, That's two grown folks. And I know a lot of women are going to get pissed off, and I know a lot of men are going to get pissed off. But this is not new. These relationships have happened in the past. There have been young women who have married older men so they can be taken care of, and they knew exactly what they were doing. Okay? Nothing bad happened to them. But in this instance, you had these women who basically, had these encounters with these men, single men at that, who may have said something to them, made a proposition, whatever the case may be. But a man can proposition. Then you have a duty to say no. And then once you say no, then it's over, but then you can't go back and say, well, just the proposition itself was assault. You can't say that. I mean, when is somebody going to come out of sound mind and start challenging some of this stuff? But see, the reason why they're not challenging these things is because there's certain things that you just can't say. It's fat shaming, it's victim shaming, it's all these things that keep you from requesting some level of accountability from people who would not be victims if they did what a reasonable person would do. And look, this is not something that is foreign. Even in a court of law, they're going to ask you, what would a reasonable person do in the same situation that you're in? So that's not a bad question. I mean, and if we as parents are not, teaching our kids what to do in these situations, then, we are in bad shape. We are truly in bad shape, and they need to start putting out universal books for people to teach their kids, how not to get in jacked up situations, So let's move on here. All right. After the release of the Daily Beast article, a spokesperson for Noth released a statement that said the story is a complete fabrication and the alleged accounts detailed throughout read like a piece of bad fiction. Chris has no knowledge of who this individual is, and as stated yesterday, has and would never cross that line. NBC News has not independently corroborated any of the three women's allegations and do not know their identities. Noth was dropped by his talent agency A3 Artists after the women came forward with their accusations. The firm confirmed to NBC News on Saturday. Okay, so why the hell is NBC News putting out uncorroborated stories from people as if it's fact? Just putting this out here is damaging to this man. This is ridiculous, man. All right. So, all right. So talks to purchase his tequila brand Ambar for $12 million also ended after the news broke. So he lost $12 million trying to sell his tequila. So more money he's losing. And even if they come out and these women are seen to be telling fictitious stories, they lose nothing. But this man has lost everything based off of some stories. This ain't fair, y'all. This is just not fair. And then you got people like DJ Academics that are saying that people in the manosphere are just, down on women and just a bunch of unintelligent individuals. Well, I say this, if guys are out here, catering to women to the point to where they don't call out bullshit when they see it, then they're part of the problem. They're part of the problem. I don't see how any reasonable person couldn't see the issues with this. You got Snoop, you got Chris, you got, and you're going to see more men like this that are going to lose as a result of women coming out telling stories. Hell, I heard one that happened in the 60s. Well, the Cosby, some of the Cosby ones was in the 60s. You would have us believe that some black man was drugging women in the 60s and they didn't kill him. in California, in Los Angeles for that matter, as if racism did not even exist during that time. But don't get me going there. You know, women are going to have to start to be held accountable just like men are for the decisions that they make in these situations where sex could occur, or men are basically asking for dates or propositioning for, for sex or whatever the case may be. It's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. It's happened for millions of years, as long as we've been on this planet. So we're going to have to find some reasonable way out of this. Okay. So Entertainment Arts Research, Inc., EARI, a beverage company, announced in a press release Friday that the deal with Ambar was canceled due to the recent allegations that have come to light against the actor. Peloton also removed an ad featuring Noth that connected to his Sex and the City character and the revival. And just like that, every single sexual assault allegation or accusation must be taken seriously. We were unaware of these allegations when we featured Chris Noth in our response to HBO's reboot. The exercise equipment company said in a statement to CNBC. The statement continued, "As we seek to learn more, we have stopped promoting this video and archived related social posts." Universal Television is a subsidiary of NBC Universal, the parent company of Today. Okay, so here we see, another man being destroyed by stories of women, and I'm gonna look and see, and I've got another couple of articles here, and we're gonna try to see what exactly happened, in these stories. All right, so here's another story that Vanity Fair did. After he was dumped from his agency, there's his vodka. Oh no, his tequila. I mean, it looks pretty cool. Fuck it, I'll buy some. So, I said we all buy some of Chris's tequila. Shit. So here we go. Chris Noth's talent. Okay, yeah, I already told you that. Okay, so here we go. The two women, the pseudonyms Zoe and Lily, and the actress Zoe Lister-Jones also took to social media to comment on Noth, whom she said she called a sexual predator without evidence. A sexual predator without evidence. This is how we're doing it nowadays. Okay, forget it. I'm going to go ahead and read the whole article. Okay, Chris Noth talent agency A3 Artist Agency has ceased representing him, the Hollywood Reporter confirmed Friday. The news follows the outlet's reporting on the two accusations against the actor of sexual assault. One allegedly took place in 2004 in Los Angeles, another in 2015 in New York. Noth has denied the allegations. Let me see here if they will go into the accusations. Okay. Okay, won't show it. All right. So the two accusers, women who don't know each other, said they felt compelled to come forward after seeing Noth reprise his role on the new iteration of Sex and the City, the limited series. And just like that, in the show, the character shocked audiences by dying after a Peloton workout in the first episode. The two women use the pseudonyms. Okay, I already read that. And called him a sexual predator. Okay, she accused him of being consistently sexually inappropriate with a female promoter at a nightclub Noth owned, where Lister-Jones worked for a time. Okay. She also said he was drunk on the set of Law and Order and did unprofessional things like sniff her neck and made unwelcome comments. She opined that Mr. Big on-screen death might be the communal grief we must face in releasing that male archetype we as women have been fed through popular culture. Sounds very feminist, doesn't it? Sounds like that was taught straight out of college. A fifth slide simply read, "Fuck Mr. Big." All right. So here's Zoe Lister. Last week, my friend asked me how I felt about Mr. Big's death on And Just Like That. And I said, honestly, I felt relieved. He asked why. And I told him it was because I couldn't separate the actor from the man. And the man is a sexual predator. My friend was alarmed at my word choice. And to be honest, so was I. I hadn't thought of this man for so many years, and yet there was a virility to my language that came from somewhere deep and buried. All of this from something that didn't even happen with her. Okay, let's go over this again. He sniffed her neck and made unwelcome comments. What did he say? What did he say? What, you smell good? Did he ask you something and then you got a chance to say, well, I don't like that, or no, or come on, Chris, that ain't cool, you know? You could have done anything to basically tell him that that was unwelcome. And once he saw that it was unwelcome and he backed off, guess what? It's nothing. It's not assault. It's not nothing. It's just you had an experience, an unwelcomed experience with a man. And the reason why you probably felt it was unwelcome is because of this statement that you made about releasing that male archetype we as women have been fed through popular culture. How do you know what a male archetype that you're being fed is if somebody didn't feed that to you in the first place? So just by that statement, you see she had a chip on her shoulder, just waiting on a man to basically do the right thing. Just do something. It's like that person in the neighborhood that walks around with his chest poked out, just waiting on somebody to say the right thing to him so he can just fuck them up real bad. Excuse my language, y'all. But that's what this sounds like to me. This sounds like a bully waiting on just the right short person to hit. That's what this sounds like, y'all. So, here again, let's break this down. Okay. All right. First of all, she accused him of being consistently sexually inappropriate with a female promoter at a club that he owned. Did the promoter, the female promoter, make an allegation? Did she say that he was being sexually inappropriate? See, this is another thing that I think a lot of people don't know. A person can be looking at, now they tell you this on the job, but if some onlooker sees you, being, too friendly with somebody on the job, you might be dating that person, whatever the case may be. You know that they can accuse you of sexual assault. Sure can. But they may not be privy to that information. But they can accuse you of sexual assault and you can lose your job. Okay? So here you have a woman here who's watching a man interacting with another woman and she despises it. She can't stand it and she feels like it's inappropriate, So this is what you call Karen-like behavior, where Karen overlooks something that she's not involved in and she makes it her business. Okay? That's what's going on here. Okay, so let's see what else she did. Okay. And he made unwelcome comments to her. Okay, but like I said, okay, we already did that. We don't know what the comments were that he said. So I mean, how can any law enforcement people even judge that was inappropriate? He hasn't had any kind of sexual encounter with anybody. He hasn't, They haven't seen him naked. Nothing of any substance has happened here other than he said some stuff to somebody, and that she saw some other stuff. Okay, so let's move on here. But she calls him a sexual predator. Okay, so how can he be a sexual predator when there was no sex involved? Okay, so let's move on here. So in a response to Lister Jones' post, a spokesperson for Noth told Vanity Fair in an email that this is entirely false and a self-serving attempt to try to jump on this story to allege Chris was ever drunk on the set of Law and Order is also completely false. And what does that have to do with anything? What does him drinking have to do with anything? Okay, the Daily Beast also published an account of a third accuser who claimed Noth sexually assaulted her in 2010, which Noth's publicist denied to the outlet. Peloton, the trendy workout system, okay, we already went over that, basically said that they pulled it, pulled his ads. Okay. But the following accusations of sexual assault, the ad was pulled. Okay, and that was with Ryan Reynolds, and it was a funny little deal there. Okay, all right. So there's that article. So now we're going to go to the notorious article itself, which is the third woman comes out, and this was the Daily Beast article. Okay, the woman alleges that actor Chris Noth sexually assaulted her in 2010 at a Manhattan restaurant he frequented. My limbs hurt in the morning, she tells the Daily Beast. Okay, let's see what happened here. A 30-year-old female tech executive alleges she was sexually assaulted by Sex and the City actor Chris Noth while working as a hostess and a lounge singer at the Midtown Manhattan restaurant Da Marino in 2010. She was 18 at the time, and Noth was 55. Okay, on Thursday, The Hollywood Reporter published 2 separate accounts, women accusing Noth of sexual assault. Okay, now we know that the other 2 were not, that one was not sexual assault at all, but this would have you believe that it was. Okay, one claimed she was assaulted at his apartment in West Hollywood in 2004, and the other at his Greenwich Village home in 2015. Both women, Zoe and Lily, told THR that Noth raped them from, can't use that word. He did that thing to him from behind while facing a mirror. Noth called the allegations categorically false. The latest victim to speak out is a friend I met at acting school who first told me of her assault the day after it took place in 2010. She has been grappling with the traumatic incident ever since she found herself alone with Noth in a dark office many years ago. In the wake of the Hollywood Reporter article, she came forward with her story on Thursday and provided an account of her assault that she says was written in October 2020. Her name has been changed to protect her identity. Wow. Why didn't she go to the police? Why didn't she go get a kit? Why wasn't a forensic examination done in order to obtain DNA? Why wasn't she, physically examined for, bruises, forcible entry and whatnot? All these things. Okay. This is the protocol. I mean, anybody in the 2000s should know. Hell, anybody in the 90s should know that, if something like that happens, the first thing you do is you go to the emergency room, and then the emergency room calls the police. The police will meet you there. Then all of the appropriate things will happen. Then a chain of custody situation will come about where the evidence gathered by the physician and the nurses will be handed over to the police in sealed containers, and it will be taken to their evidence collection area and held for a trial. That person will be immediately taken and taken into custody. A statement will be made. He'll be arrested, or either he'll be let go until the trial. And then, things go down the line. Any fool knows that. And these women watch TV more than we do. They know how it goes. I did a show on Lifetime. Lifetime shows every woman exactly how it's going to go down, how it needs to happen in the greatest detail. Not to mention all of the other dramatizations that are marketed to women so that women know exactly what they're supposed to do in the event that something like that happens. So why is it that this didn't happen? But she told somebody else, somebody that didn't do anything about it, and this person didn't go call the police. So did he not believe her? Did he believe her? What is the deal? And then she's still in pain to this day, but not in pain to the point to where she would go and try to get the person arrested who forced himself upon her. I don't know, y'all. I mean, I try to look at things from an objective point of view. I've never understood why a person would allow someone who has done something as bad as that to just go away, and people will say, well, she was 18, you don't know how hard this was, as if this only happens to women. So, let's move on. Okay. All right. So they were looking for pretty hostesses that could draw people to the restaurant and double as entertainment on nights where they had a pianist play Broadway show tunes. Ava explains about getting hired at the De Marino, located on 49th Street, off of Times Square. At 18, she had just graduated from an acting conservatory and desperately needed side jobs to supplement her acting career, so the chance to sing was appealing. Ava says her job was to stand in front of the restaurant and convince passersby to go inside. Okay, this is the same thing that happens when you go to the club where they basically let all of these, the girls in. If you let the girls in, the guys will come because the guys want the girls, This is basically selling your club through sex, or the potential of getting sex from nice looking women. So you're allowing this club to use you in a way that is objectification, and when something happens, they're not responsible in any way. You only see objectification in one way instead of every way. I don't know. I just have a lot of issues with this, especially from people who are supposed to be educated, and pretty much, they're in a bad way. Money gets low. Oh yeah, I'll do whatever so I can get this money. We've all been there. You take a shit job in order for you to make some money and stuff. But if your principles as a woman are to not be objectified, then guess what? You shouldn't have took this job. Now, I'm not victim shaming. I'm just saying, this is the same thing I would tell my daughter. Hell no, you're not going to go take that job. You're going to go do something else. Go wash dishes or something. Go work in some other place to supplement your income. But you will not, objectify yourself and put yourself in a situation where people look at you in a sexual manner and who are going to expect sex from you upon proposing the situation to you. So that if you don't want that to happen, you need to go on. You need to get ghosts. Go to somebody you can talk to. Go to some man that'll protect you, whatever the case may be. Okay, but you got to do something. Drill your kids, drill your daughters on what would you do if you got caught up in this situation. To stop some of these things. All right. Okay. So she says the chance to sing was appealing. Okay. So Ava says her job was to stand in front of a restaurant and basically get people to come in. Okay. Convince passersby to go inside, the goal being to fill the restaurant with enough patrons so that she could perform. The better I was as bait, the longer I got to sing, she maintains. So see what I'm saying? I didn't even get down to that part, but she knew she was bait. So if you dig a little deeper into what kind of bait she was, you see what kind of bait she was. Okay, when Noth came to the Dummerino, he was always intoxicated. It's a club. He can't drink. A man can't drink. Let me stop. Claims Ava. I cannot remember in detail how many times we spoke, but with great familiarity, one night he told my boss I would sing with him even though I hadn't filled the restaurant yet. They played characters in their song duets, and at his table, they talked about his career and her hometown of Toronto. I love Canadian women, she remembers him saying, as he repeatedly pulled her onto his lap while groping her and pressing me on to his erection. Okay. She says it confused her at the time because on some level it was exciting. She was getting the attention of Noth, whom she'd watched as an iconic character as a big on Sex and the City. I remember how electrifying his hand, the hand I watched hold Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City, felt grabbing me. At the end of her shift around 1 a.m., Ava's manager informed her that he'd pay her in the office, which was accessible by way of the kitchen. As she gathered her coat and envelope of cash, the lights shut off behind her. She remembers that Noth had made his way into the office. He acted as if we had intentionally snuck off together clandestinely, she recounts. Instead, she found him sloppy, heavy, and strong. At first, I felt as though I was the only person in the universe who could hear me saying no, she shares. She says Noth began kissing her and pressed her body against the desk. After pulling down her tights to digitally, y'all read that on your own, he felt her. Okay, y'all read that on your own. I was so hopeful that would be the end of it, she remembers. Instead, Noth asked if she was at the end, or y'all read that, and to continue blanking her. She did. She slid into an office chair to create more distance and pressing her arms and legs against his body, pushing him away. My limbs hurt in the morning. He wasn't hearing no, but he heard me when I said not here and convinced him that I would meet him somewhere else, she explains. The idea of relocating to his home inspired Noth to stop and gave her the opportunity to escape the office and his grasp. Noth told her he would send a car once he got to his apartment. After Noth left the restaurant, Ava went home without the intention of going. He texted her from his home, awaiting her and asking her for her address, but she never replied. The following day, she called her parents, who had made friends with the owners and management of Dummerino. When they'd visit New York, they listened to Ava's story in disbelief, trying to make sense of a restaurant they believed would protect Ava-like family. On a call with Ava, she says the owner rejected her claims about Noth. They told me Noth would never be interested in someone as insignificant as me. I never went back. Dummerino did not respond to the request for comment. The owner at the time, Pascal Marino, passed away in 2015. Ava is an open book, particularly among her close circle of friends. This incident was no secret to us, says James, her close friend she met at acting conservatory. Ava was confused at the time by what happened and chose to make light of it when explaining the incident with Noth to friends. Make light of it. She was devastated, but she makes light of it with her friends? Okay. In a Facebook message observed by the Daily Beast from May 10th, 2010, a friend from Toronto wrote to Ava, "I feel terrible about the thing you told us all, and that happened to you. I just want to say that what happened to you is neither funny nor a joke, and I hope you realize that as well." Okay, so she joked about it, and then she got further coaching that it was an issue here. Okay? But, I don't know. I'd have been pissed off. I'd have said, "No, we fixing to go down here and I'll go to the police station." Okay? Anyway, y'all know how I feel about it. Let's finish this up. When reached for comment, Noth's publicist said that Noth denies this as ever happening and has no idea who this woman is. Ava eventually left acting behind to start her own business in property, technology, and a family. 3 years ago, at the height of the Me Too, she'd begun to come to terms with what happened to her in the dark office years ago. She wrote a Facebook post about the horrific episode, though didn't name her assailant, and participated in anonymous email chains where survivors and advocates shared stories and compiled evidence against celebrity offenders. Now, you see what I said? I told you guys this in a lot of in the Cosby deal that I did, where the Me Too folks were basically getting these women together to corroborate stories. Okay? That's not their job to compile evidence against celebrities. They're supposed to go to the police. So this may be a shakedown, like Snoop was saying. This may be a shakedown because there is a cabal of women out here who have gotten together and they are going to take down celebrities. I mean, there it is. It's there in fine print. Okay. But she says the fad passed. The email stopped. Noth was never the headline. His name was never in the list. While watching the documentary Jeffrey Epstein, okay, here it is, y'all. Filthy Rich on Netflix, Ava identified a moment that felt familiar. An Epstein victim described the look of the flight crew as she walked off his private jet, knowing look that seemed to communicate how they knew of his crimes and they too were complicit. I haven't been able to shake the memory of how the kitchen staff looked at me as I emerged from the office with Chris Noth. So here you go. Further coaching. This is why you see so many of these documentaries coming out. The Cosby documentary, even though he's not in a legal situation. The R. Kelly supposed expose where nothing was going on until after these men are dragged out in the court of public opinion. And if you go and you look up the court of public opinion, let's just do that right quick. Okay, that's the end of that. That's the end of that one. And I don't know how long we are into this. I don't know how long you guys want me to go. I don't want to, basically lose you guys in this mix, but maybe I'll make this one a long one. So let's do this. There you go. All right. Court of public opinion. This is Wikipedia, but Trying a case in the court of public opinion refers to using the news media to influence public support for one side or the other in a court case, or in this case, before it ever goes to court. What is meant by the court of public opinion? The beliefs and judgment of most people. The statement was quickly condemned in the court of public opinion. Okay, that's just used in a sentence. Okay, here it is. How is the court of public opinion similar to or different from the real courts of law? The court of public opinion is an alternative system of justice. Remember that, alternative system of justice. It's not the system of justice. It's another alternative system of justice. It's very different from the traditional court system. This court is based on reputation, revenge, public shaming, and the whims of the crowd. Having a good story is more important than having the law on your side. Okay? You guys remember that. So all you got to do is just look that up, and it is what it is. This is why you have things like Lifetime and all of their sexual assault shows and all of their demonizing of men shows and all of that. This is why you have, we got to have a talk about Cosby, with the coon guy. Okay. This is why, you have, 3 nights of R. Kelly, this is why, because there was no evidence. But because that show made him look so bad, then you put on political pressure for something to be done about this guy, whoever that guy might be. Snoop might be on the the other end of this now. You let all this time go by, Snoop running around, got women on chains and, running around with pimp goblets and whatnot, and nobody said a word. Then let enough time go by, and then you got a Me Too and all of that coming out here. You got all of this coaching and making women feel bad by, vicariously living through, the terrible events and these docudramas. And then they get in their feelings, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 of them come out. Because I'm sure that Chris has had some interactions with some women who could probably come back. I'm sure we all have had some interactions with some women who could come back and say it was something other than what it was. And then how could you protect yourself against that, guys? How could you protect yourself against that? Because as we see, you see by these 2 stories, what's said about that. Okay. So I'm going to move on to this last part here. And this one is the psychology of copycat crime. Okay. Now this is a justice article here. All right. So here we go here. All right. You're standing in a subway platform waiting for the next 6 train, which is coming in 2 minutes. You are just behind the yellow line towards the middle of the platform when suddenly you feel the stinging sensation across your left cheek like someone just punched you in the face. You put a hand on your face and you feel something warm and wet. When you bring your hand down, you see it's blood, your blood. You can't reach your phone because your hand is covered in blood. No one's around you. No one around you seemed to have noticed that anything happened. Everyone is listening to music with headphones or playing games on their cell phones. You go into shock and you realize you don't even know who attacked you or why. Okay, since December 2015, there have been some 24 slashings in New York City, many of them on or near subway platforms. The media has speculated that these crimes are copycat in nature, meaning that the subsequent slashings were inspired or motivated by the initial crimes in December. However, the New York City Police Department claims there is little evidence to suggest that the crimes are related. The issue with any of these splurges in crime is that you have to differentiate between an increase in reporting and an increase in crime, says Raymond Surratt, a criminologist at the University of Central Florida. Just because you read more about a particular type of crime in the newspaper, he says, doesn't necessarily mean that there have been more incidents of that crime. It might just be that the particular type of crime is getting more media coverage than usual, even though criminology has traditionally given credence to copycat crime. It has not done so through the lens of the media, he says. Now, this is important, guys. So, no one is talking about the effects of social media on the criminal justice system, on the pursuit of justice, on people's ability to be able to put out a negative story about somebody. And, what you're seeing is basically a form of mob justice that takes place. That's also where you get the court of public opinion, is mob justice. That's where you get hung, people get burned at the stake, whatever the case may be. Mob justice is what killed witches in Salem. Mob justice is what killed slaves. Mob justice is what killed people black people in Reconstruction and Jim Crow. Mob justice is what essentially has been putting people, black men, in jail in droves to be used as, slave labor still. Okay? Just keep those things in mind. All right. Other explanations have to be eliminated to determine if a crime is really copycat Surratt adds. This includes whether or not the same person is committing the crimes, which seems to be the case for some of the recent slashings. Chronologically speaking, you can't copycat yourself. However, knowing whether or not a crime is a copycat probably isn't super helpful to the police when it comes to solving crimes, he says. Even though Surratt believes that these New York slashings are probably connected on some level, the only way to really determine if a crime is a copycat crime is to catch the criminal and ask exactly why they did it. And even then, the interrogator has to rely on the criminals telling the truth, which they don't always do. Now, I want you to keep that in mind also. Even if you got these women to go in and make these, to see the investigators, this is an important statement here. They are relying on the criminals to tell the truth. This is why the first 48 is such a prolific show, because these criminals essentially telling on themselves. If they didn't tell on themselves, all what we believe about, Batman and, him finding out, through detective work, that these people are doing this and doing that, that's all bullshit. Basically, they're taking the easy road, which is they're going to squeeze you and tell you whatever they got to do. They're going to, treat you like absolute turd until you tell it. And then when you tell on yourself, then they solved the crime, and then that was good detective work. Okay? All right. So it's the same thing with these allegations on Snoop, Chris, and everybody else, and then, they're going to, in the court of public opinion, they're going to say the weight of all of these people. 12 women wouldn't all say the same thing. 3 women wouldn't say the same thing. See, and that's just playing on your, tugging on your emotional, strings there to make you believe that there has to be something. There has to be something there. Well, people who deal with crimes, they still have to deal with science also. Me just thinking that there's something there without evidence, is about as relevant as the most insignificant thing you can think of. Let me just say that. I'm not going to even waste any brain power on that. But that's what it is. Okay? So let's move on here. In the mid-90s, Columbia Pictures released the film Money Train, featuring a scene where one of the characters attempts to set a subway token booth attendant on fire. Not long after the film opened, two men actually set a Brooklyn subway token booth attendant on fire. This might seem like a cut and dried example of a copycat crime, but it actually isn't. It is still unclear whether or not the men had seen the movie, says Surratt. Initially, they said they hadn't, but their stories seemed to change. If they hadn't seen the movie themselves, they still could have heard about it from a review or a friend who saw it. But we have no way of knowing without a doubt if this particular crime was a copycat. Okay. In 2006, in his 2006 book, Urban Nights, the media, the right, and the moral panic over the city, Steve McKeck, a professor of communications at North Central College in Illinois, discusses what he calls cinema suburban paranoia. That is, films that riff on suburban fears of urban environments, such as fear of the subway as a place of criminal activity and terror. He cites Money Train as one of these films and mentions that the film likely had an influence on the actions of the criminals who actually did set the subway booth attendant on fire. Whether or not these more recent subway attacks are copycat crimes or simply coincidental, they are still a terrifying phenomenon. The notion that imitation can play a role in the genesis of crime is an old idea going back to the late 19th century. Writings of French criminologist Gabriel Tarde, says David Greenberg, a sociologist at New York University. One of Tarde's contemporaries, Gustave Tosti, wrote about Tarde's sociological theories in Political Science Quarterly in 1897. Tarde proposed that copycatting be defined by the influence of one brain upon another brain. This influence has two stages, a model and a copy. That is to say, an idea which tends to reproduce itself by suggestion, and an act of imitation by which the reproduction is accomplished. The latter, an act of imitation, translates into a copycat crime. However, the term copycat was first used to describe patterns of criminal behavior by David Dressler, a former executive director of the New York State Division of Parole and sociologist, in 1961. His article, The Case of the Copycat Criminal, ran in the New York Times on December 10th of that year. The article's subtitle, When the Crime Comes in Waves, Simple Imitation Plays a Large Part in the Phenomenon, serves as a good summary of Dressler's overarching argument. When a series of similar crimes occurs in a given period of time, he argues, there's a high likelihood that the criminals are copying one another. However, some academic experts in criminology take a different approach. I don't believe there is a legal category of copycat crimes, says New York University's Greenberg. Whether or not a crime is categorized as copycat doesn't play an important role in how law enforcement solves the crime or how the courts prosecute criminals, he says. So maybe it makes sense that even though it has been 55 years since the term was introduced, there still is not a lot of good research on copycat offenders, says Raymond Surratt. What we do know, he says, is that crime waves tend to follow fairly predictable patterns and usually run their course within 2 to 3 months. Although there is not enough data from the recent slashings to do a rigorous empirical analysis, Surratt says, one can predict that the crime wave has almost run its course by this point. Jacqueline Helfgott, a professor of criminal justice at Seattle University, says that some research suggests that criminals get their ideas for the crimes from the media, and that there does seem to be an effect of the media on at least a subset of people. Excessive media attention to a particular type of crime can be a risk factor for criminal behavior, she says. There is a subset of the population known as edge sitters, Helfgott said. These are people sitting on the edge between normal and criminal behavior. A lot of things can provoke them, she adds, influencing pop culture, increasing the likelihood that they will engage in criminal behavior. If a so-called edge setter sees reports of a subway slashing on the evening news, they might be inspired to slash someone on the subway. However, some researchers say media coverage does not matter, says Helfgott. Plenty of people watch the news, but they don't all go out and commit a crime because they saw that someone else did it on TV. The recent attacks in New York City seem unrelated, but there aren't enough details to pass judgment, says Helfgott. The subway presents an environmental opportunity for a number of reasons, she says. Although there are typically plenty of people on the train or the platform to witness a crime, each of these people is also a potential victim or a perpetrator, and they are all in a confined space. The criminal blends into the crowd, but therefore you have a panic attack about riding the subway. But before you have a panic about riding the subway, it is important to understand what it means when the NYPD or the Transit Authority reports an increase in this kind of crime, and why it doesn't necessarily indicate an outbreak of copycat crime. A 15% increase in this type of crime in New York City is not a large one, says David Greenberg. When you have a very low base rate, he explains, a big increase percentage-wise, an actual mean can actually mean an extremely small number of cases. An increase of 7 slashings to 8 slashings from 1 month to the next, for example, amounts to a 14.2% an increase. Likewise, a 15% increase means that 85% of the occurrences are at a routine level. These percentages can jump around a lot, Greenberg says, and it means nothing. Even though the increase in the crime isn't significant, excessive media coverage can make it seem like a much larger spike than it is, says Greenberg. Okay, now I'm going to stop right there. Now I want you guys to think about what we're going through right now with Me Too and everything, and social media, and all these things that we talked about, Lifetime and all that. You know, all of these exposés and whatnot, they give the appearance, like I said, that there are just large numbers of these men who are out here just victimizing, women. And that's not the case. There is no evidence to support that. But if you put enough of this stuff in social media, enough of it on Facebook, enough of it on Instagram, enough of it on TikTok, enough of it on Lifetime and HBO and Showtime, then this is what you're going to get. And what you're going to get is you're going to get people who are categorized as being victimized in large numbers. But in truth, the people that are going to be victimized are these men who are going to be looked upon as, shape-shifting abusers. I mean, it makes me think about, like when you look at, movies where, you have people like on Blade, and these people are moving around, and they're moving in a different fashion, and you know that they're vampires, but they look like normal people, And I get this picture in my head that this is the way that these women want these younger women to look at men. Everybody's a potential person who is going to hurt you, And what is this going to do to our society? So, stories about violence in our midst attract readers. He says, more violence in the news gets more clicks and makes more money. Sensationalism. Same thing that we talk about YouTube. The more sensational it is, the more, as we used to say in the black community, the more ratchet it is. Guess what? Guess who's going to go look at that shit first? The people who are going to look at that first are the women. Women love these things, man. They love when people are having these salacious sexual affairs, and people are selling dope on TV. All of all of this crazy sex that's being pushed out to people. Men don't go look at that shit. We want to go watch Transformers or John Wick. We could care less about that. So remember who they're marketing this stuff to. They're marketing this stuff to women, and it's having an effect on women. So, this article is a little bit off, but you can see, if you follow, you can see where the significant parts are in this article. So, don't lose focus. If you have to listen to this again, listen to it again. I'm going to put this in the links. I'm going to put all of this in the links. I want you guys to go through this, man. Pick through this because it is important. All right. The clicks make more money. Whether or not more violent crimes really are happening. When fewer violent crimes are committed overall, other less violent crimes tend to get more coverage, making it seem like there are more instances of them. The linkages between these New York City subway crimes only seems to be made by journalists writing about them, says Gray Cavender, a professor of criminal justice at Arizona State University. These stories don't seem to have a lot of similarities. He says, the weapons, the victims, the motives, they are all inconsistent. Coming up with a way to analyze copycat crime is hard, says Cavender, and a journalistic application of the term copycat might not necessarily fulfill the scholarly criteria. Okay, I thought that would be would kind of cover some of where we are, and to kind of make you guys think a little bit about where we are now, where we were, a couple of years ago, and where we're headed into the future. If somebody doesn't grab the reins of these wild horses and try to rein them in, then they're just going to keep running until they run right over the cliff. We are going to have to find a way to interact with each other without fear of every man being a villain. And for that matter, every woman being a villain. I mean, my God, it's getting out of pocket. It's just getting out of pocket. But I hope you guys found this interesting, because it was very, very interesting to me. Wow, that's pretty deep. But thank you guys for listening. This probably should be the second part or the first part before the Snoop part, but these definitely go hand in hand to explain, the story in a more linear fashion, I want to say. But hopefully, this didn't get too deep and you guys did follow it. And if you guys have any comments, or you want me to cover anything, special, I'd be glad to do that. You guys hit me up in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.
I feel like a